You will never guess what I should have known yesterday but learned today. Everything we perceive as the present is actually the past. Hey guys, welcome back to Stuff I Should Have Known Yesterday. Today we're talking about human perception and how that relates to time.
Cool.
As humans, we perceive life as a series of snapshots, glued together to form what we consider the present. But what if everything we see, hear, smell, touch in this moment isn't actually in the present at all, but in the past? Before we can unpack that question, we need to first learn about a superpowered network we all have access to that moves information back and forth trillions of times every second. If you guessed the internet, you're actually wrong. I'm talking about the nervous system. In a nutshell, the nervous system is the electrical system of our bodies. It processes information received from our senses, sight, hearing, smell, touch, taste, and triggers reactions, such as moving our muscles or causing us to feel pain. The nervous system is made up of trillions of nerve cells, also known as neurons, whose main job is to deliver information where it needs to go in the body. Think of it as a superhighway with trillions of little delivery vans traveling back and forth at speeds up to 120 meters per second. What information is being delivered? Not much, just everything you've ever experienced in life from birth to this moment. Every sight, every smell, every feeling, literally everything you experience starts and ends in this network. And you couldn't survive without it. So what does that look like in action? Well, let's say you accidentally prick your finger.
Ouch!
The neurons in your finger say to the neurons next to them, hey, this thing just happened with this cactus, pass it on. And those neurons pass it on to the next neurons, and so on, and so on, and so on, until the message finally reaches the brainstem. The neurons in the brain are like, hey, thanks for letting us know, we're on it. And start filtering that information to different parts of the brain to process and come up with a plan for how to respond. For instance, the parts of the brain that control pain, muscle movement, and memory might send messages back to the finger along the same network saying, 1, that really hurt.
Yes.
2, pull our finger away from this cactus.
Yes.
And 3, don't do that again.
Yes!
All of this happens in a fraction of a second, less than half the time it takes to blink your eye once. And the nervous system performs round trips like that trillions of times per second. Pretty incredible, right? How do neurons pass information? That's a great question. Thanks for asking. Neurons consist of 3 parts: a cell body, dendrites, and an axon. When neuron A wants to communicate with neuron B, it converts that info into an electrical signal called an action potential that shoots down the axon to the gap between itself and the next neuron, called a synapse. At this point, the electrical charge is converted into chemical neurotransmitters that serve as a bridge between the 2 neurons. The information is passed across this bridge and picked up by the other neuron's dendrites, initiating an action potential in neuron B. And the process starts all over again. There are 2 main ways to categorize the nervous system. First, it can be categorized based on location, as either the central nervous system, consisting of the nerves in the brain and spinal cord, or the peripheral nervous system, which is pretty much every other nerve in your body. The second way to categorize the nervous system is by function. The voluntary nervous system, or somatic nervous system, is responsible for all the things you can consciously control, such as voluntary muscle movement. The involuntary nervous system, or autonomic nervous system, is responsible for everything you can't consciously control, such as blood pressure, heart rate, and other metabolic processes. It's important to remember that these categories overlap, meaning you could have involuntary processes that fall under the peripheral or the central nervous system, and vice versa. Okay, so what about the whole everything we perceive as the present is actually in the past thing? Well, as we've learned, information from our senses must travel all the way to the brain before we recognize them as a sight, smell, feeling, or sound. In other words, the brain analyzes what we've encountered, not what we're encountering. So technically, by the time we perceive anything, or by the time information about what our senses have experienced reaches the brain, time has passed. Which means the brain is processing what happened in the past, though we perceive it as the present.
I got it.
Granted, it's less than 100 milliseconds in the past, but it's the past nonetheless. So in review, the nervous system analyzes and processes what our senses experience and triggers reactions within the body. It is made up of trillions of nerve cells called neurons, whose job is to pass information to where it needs to go in the body. Neurons have three main parts: a cell body, dendrites, and an axon. They communicate by sending electrical signals called action potentials down the axon to the gap between itself and the next neuron, called a synapse. The information is then converted into chemical neurotransmitters that serve as a bridge between the two neurons. The information is received by the neighboring neuron, and the process starts all over again. The nervous system can be categorized by location as the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, or by function as the voluntary or involuntary nervous system. So why should you care? Because your nervous system is the critical link between you and the outside world. Without it, everything you experience, all that information you encounter every second of every day, would never make it from your senses to your brain. In other words, instead of a sponge soaking up the world around you, you'd be a brick, incapable of experiencing anything. Anyway, that's what I learned today. Hey guys, before you go, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have a science topic you'd like me to cover in a future video, leave it in the comments below. I'd love to hear your ideas. And as always, thanks for watching.